On the 8th of January 2002, a security guard named Muhammad Yaqub was engaged in his routine patrols within the Orchard Tower complex located in Singapore. As part of his duties, he was tasked to ensure that all vehicles within the car park adhered to parking regulations and duly paid their parking fees. Hence, each morning, he diligently traversed through the car park, systematically examining every floor. He found himself on the 7th floor of the car park, and out of the corner of his eye, he spotted a silver car in the distance. Muhammad came to an abrupt stop, his heart racing, as a concerning thought crossed his mind. That car's been there for the past few days. I hope the owner isn't sleeping here. Muhammad wanted to get a closer look, so he started walking towards the silver car when a peculiar smell hit his nose. Muhammad wouldn't know it, but today would probably be one of his most unforgettable days on the job. It's tough to describe the smell of a dead body to people who've never experienced it. Certain individuals draw a comparison between the smell of a dead body and the scent of decaying meat, accompanied by undertones of spoiled fruit. Upon a person's demise, the body promptly begins the decomposition process, marking the start of the unmistakable smell associated with death. This distinct odor comes from a medley of gases produced by microorganisms throughout the different stages of decomposition. And it all begins with the breakdown of organic matter in the body, which releases a cocktail of noxious gases like ammonia, sulfur compounds, and fatty acids. Unfortunately for Muhammad, it was this combination of substances that contributed to the unmistakably unpleasant nature of the smell. Moving closer to the vehicle, Muhammad noticed that the odor was getting stronger and stronger. Every instinct within him strongly signaled that the source of the smell emanated directly from the silver car. Convinced that something might be amiss, Muhammad called the police. Unaware at that moment, his revelation would set in motion a chilling saga destined to captivate the nation. As the investigation unfolded, it revealed a dark tale of deception, murder, and a carefully orchestrated cover-up. Muhammad's discovery would lead to the unfolding of one of Singapore's most notorious murder cases, one that was shrouded in mystery and would only be solved over the next 3 years. You're listening to Heinous, an Asian true crime podcast produced by One Up Media. This episode may contain sensitive details and graphic imagery. Listener discretion is advised. In response to Muhammad's police report, a team of officers swiftly made their way to the Orchard Towers car park, the ominous location where the silver Daewoo chairman was parked. Upon their arrival, the officers too were greeted by the unmistakable odor of rotting flesh. Undeterred, the police decisively forced open the car, a moment that would lead to a harrowing discovery, sending shockwaves through the investigation. Inside the vehicle, the officers were confronted with a gruesome scene. 2 decomposing corpses, each revealing a macabre tale of horror. The first body, identified as that of a 46-year-old Singaporean male named Kho Nai Guan, lay within a wooden picnic basket placed at the rear seat of the car. The condition of Kho's remains hinted at a grim fate. His body within the basket bore signs of potential trauma, its form distorted and disrupted. In the trunk of the vehicle, another grim revelation awaited the investigators. A second body, this time carefully wrapped in blankets, with the head wrapped tightly in plastic bags and secured with neckties. The blood spots on the translucent surface of the bag was an ominous reminder of the violent nature of the crime. This second body was confirmed to be that of a woman, identified as Susie Lan Ya Ming, also known by the alias Susie Lan. Lan was a 29-year-old Chinese immigrant. She first arrived in Singapore in October 2001 with the aim of becoming a teacher. Interestingly, The unfolding narrative revealed an intriguing dimension to the relationship between Lan and Kho. Lan was positively identified to be in a romantic relationship with Kho at the time, although it did come to light that she was in fact married with 2 8-year-old twin sons right before her death. On the other hand, Kho himself was a father of 3, but had become estranged from his wife. It was obvious that the likelihood of this being a suicide was low, given the conditions in which they were discovered, which definitely pointed toward the involvement of others. But who? Both Kho and Lan met their tragic ends through different means, as confirmed by Dr. Paul Chui, the forensic pathologist who examined their remains. Kho's cause of death was determined to be strangulation, while Lan succumbed to suffocation. In the case of Kho, his family was able to identify him by his distinctive Thai tattoos, but not much is known about his estranged wife's reaction to his death. On the other end of this tragic tale, Lan's body was eventually reclaimed by her 32-year-old Chinese husband, Lin Jia-song, who worked in a telecommunications firm. However, this somber reunion only occurred 10 months after her untimely death, and her husband Lin was quoted saying that he was shocked to find her in Singapore, hinting at a possible period of estrangement between the couple. According to Lin, prior to his wife's tragic murder, he regularly received weekly calls from Lan during her stay in Singapore. The last time he had ever heard a voice was on 29th December 2001, merely days before she was discovered dead. No one expected that it would take a full 10 months before Lan's identity could be definitively established through the examination of her belongings and the DNA samples provided by Lin. Lin revealed that Lan had previously promised him that she would return to her hometown in Fujian, China for the upcoming Chinese New Year. However, she never fulfilled that promise. Over the next 3 months, amidst the unfolding mystery of the female victim in the Orchard Towers murder case, Lin grappled with the challenge of attempting to re-establish contact with Lan. The jolting revelation only came when Lin received notification about the potential identification of his wife as the female deceased victim discovered at Orchard Towers. When police searched through their belongings and conducted background checks, they found the last known address of both Kho and Lan, which was an apartment situated in Balmoral Park. The ownership of the apartment in Balmoral Park rested in the hands of a 64-year-old individual named Michael McCrea. Born in Britain in 1958, Michael McCrea wasn't the most academically accomplished. He did not complete secondary school and dropped out without an O-level exam certificate. Despite this, McCrea exhibited a remarkable business acumen that earned him public recognition in the media. In the year 1980, his prowess in the business realm earned him the title of Nottingham's £1 Million Man, a distinction bestowed upon him after successfully generating a profit of 1.2 million British pounds in just 9 months while working for a financial services firm. In the 1990s, McCrea ventured to Southeast Asia, where he served as a financial advisor in Singapore. It was here that he crossed paths with his future Australian wife, Brunetta Stocko, eventually leading to their marriage. The couple went on to have 4 children, one of whom was a son named Callum, who was 2 years old in 2003. It is noted that McCrea achieved such remarkable success that he authored a book titled Expat Survival Kit, specifically crafted to offer financial guidance to his expatriate clients in Singapore. Nevertheless, the trajectory of his professional journey took a tumultuous turn when allegations of financial misconduct surfaced, leading to reports of McCrea violating financial regulations. This breach of professional conduct resulted in hefty fines during his tenure in Singapore. At the time, McCrea was reported to have lived in an apartment within the Pinewood Gardens condominium at Balmoral Park. According to accounts, he was known to regularly throw big parties at his home, a practice that triggered numerous grievances and annoyance from his neighbors. Eventually, the noise from these gatherings, combined with his reported financial improprieties, contributed to an environment of discontent within the community. To further complicate matters, McCrea's personal life took a toll as his wife, disapproving of his chosen lifestyle, eventually relocated to Australia, leaving him behind. Rather than making efforts to reconnect with his family, McCrea persisted in prioritizing his individual interests and picked up amateur boxing. This shift in focus could be interpreted as an attempt to cope with the challenges he was facing, or a genuine reflection of his callous attitude. In June 2001, McCrea met a waitress named Audrey Ong at a local pub and began a romantic involvement with her. As time passed, their relationship intensified to the extent that McCrea extended an invitation for Ong to share his residence in Balmoral Park, an offer she willingly accepted. However, Ong would not only be cohabiting with McCrea, but also with two additional individuals, 41-year-old Kho Nai Guan and his girlfriend, Susie Lan Ya Ming. In 1998, Michael McCrea first crossed paths with Kho Nai Guan, a taxi driver at the time. Kho must have left a lasting impression on Michael because their connection swiftly transformed into a close friendship. Months later, McCrea took it a step further by hiring Kho as his personal driver. It was McCrea who was impressed by the amiable and articulate nature of Kho. His spirit and character endeared him to everyone who met him. Kho Nai Guan didn't choose to be a taxi driver by default. He had navigated the ups and downs of entrepreneurship prior to meeting Michael. He once ran an electronics business, which unfortunately faced bankruptcy in 1989. Subsequent to this setback, he briefly participated in his brother's pet food venture and attempted, albeit unsuccessfully, to launch his own business in 1992. Despite the hurdles in his professional path, Kho did receive acclaim and awards in 1997 for his exceptional service as a taxi driver. Nevertheless, his life was characterized by a reputation for engaging in extramarital affairs, frequently spending nights with foreign women and prostitutes. This facet of his personal conduct, however, did not diminish his close bond with McCrea, who fondly addressed him as Ah Guan and rewarded him generously for his committed services. If anything, it may have just brought them closer together. It was just after midnight on January 2, 2002. McCrea, Ong, Lan, and Kho had gathered at the apartment in Balmoral Park to toast the New Year's Day festivities. As the night progressed and the drinks continued to flow, a heavily intoxicated Kho Nai Guan rose from his seat with the intention of addressing Audrey Ong, who was seated on the sofa. Michael McCrea's eyes were watching him. 2 days afterward, the lifeless bodies of Kho Nai Guan and his girlfriend, Susie Lan, would be discovered in the silver Daewoo parked at Orchard Towers. On January 8, 2002, the names Michael McCrea and Audrey Ong were added to the police's wanted list under suspicion regarding the deaths of Kho Nai Guan and Susie Lan, a case that was classified as murder. Michael was the main suspect in the deaths of Guan and Lan, and Audrey Ong was Michael's girlfriend at the time, thus indicating a strong likelihood of her involvement as an accomplice in the crime. Recognizing the gravity of the situation, the Singapore police force took decisive action. They swiftly reached out to Interpol, urging them to list Michael and Audrey as wanted international fugitives. Interpol swiftly heeded Singapore's request, and for a period of time, the pair were catapulted to the top of the list for Singapore's most wanted criminals. According to Singapore's Immigration and Checkpoints Authority, investigations into Michael and Audrey's travel history revealed their departure from Singapore to London on January 5th, a mere 3 days prior to the grim discovery of the bodies. With this new information in hand, the focus of the police shifted across the seas to the UK. Collaboration between Singaporean and UK authorities intensified, with the UK police pledging to maintain vigilant surveillance for Michael and Audrey within their jurisdiction. However, the expansive territory of Britain, with its population approaching 60 million people, posed a significant obstacle in the pursuit of the elusive pair. The details into how the police managed to nab the pair are sparse. It is believed that following their departure from Singapore, Michael and Audrey resided in London for a period of time before embarking on a flight to Australia. It is speculated that this particular flight may have aroused suspicion among authorities, potentially leading to a breakthrough in the investigation. 5 months elapsed from the grim discovery of the bodies before Australian law enforcement finally apprehended Michael McCrea and Audrey Ong. The pair were arrested in Melbourne, where they were discovered hiding within the residence of Michael's estranged pregnant wife. Following the arrest of Audrey Ong and Michael McCrea in Australia, local authorities promptly notified their Singaporean counterparts. In response, the Singaporean authorities swiftly issued extradition orders for both individuals. These orders mandated their return to Singapore to face trial for their alleged crimes, marking a pivotal step in the pursuit of justice for Kunai Guan and Susie Lan. Audrey Ong was the first to face extradition proceedings and was repatriated to Singapore on November 10, 2002. She pleaded guilty to 2 counts of tampering with evidence related to a serious offense. Subsequently, on February 8, 2003, she received a 12-year prison sentence. Being a Singaporean citizen, the extradition process for Audrey was relatively straightforward and uncomplicated. However, the situation differed significantly from Michael McCrea. Despite being arrested alongside Audrey, and despite Singapore's issuance of an extradition order, Michael's extradition did not proceed. Instead, he remained confined within a high-security Australian prison. Australia hesitated to comply with Singapore's extradition request due to the potential severity of punishment awaiting Michael in Singapore. Aware that capital offences in Singapore could lead to the death penalty, Australia, having abolished capital punishment in its entirety in 1985, found itself in a legal quandary. This made Michael's extradition a complex and sensitive matter, as it was against Australian law to extradite individuals to jurisdictions where they may face execution. In response to the complex extradition dilemma, the Singaporean government opted for a strategic approach. They entered into negotiations with the Australian government, offering assurances regarding Michael's fate should he face conviction for murder. The crux of the negotiation centered on Singapore's promise that Michael would not face the death penalty, even in the event of a guilty verdict. This assurance, although seemingly unprecedented, was grounded in Singapore's legal system. Legal experts asserted that even in the event of a death sentence, Michael would retain the right to appeal to higher courts for sentence reduction. Furthermore, should these appeals fail, Michael would still have the opportunity to petition the President of Singapore for clemency, which may result in the commutation of his death sentence to life imprisonment. This multifaceted assurance provided a viable pathway for Michael to avoid the death penalty, assuaging concerns raised by Australian authorities. Ultimately, it was this concession that paved the way for Australia's approval of Michael's extradition on November 16, 2002. You might believe that this marks the conclusion of the saga, with Michael heading back to Singapore to confront justice. But it's far from over. Michael immediately began a sequence of legal maneuvers to contest the extradition order, leading to a protracted legal battle that spanned more than 3 years. It wasn't until his 4th and final appeal that a definitive decision was reached, with the High Court of Australia rejecting his plea after the initial 3 appeals proved unsuccessful. Following the rejection, Michael was placed under stringent security measures, including being restrained in a straitjacket for a 2-week period to prevent self-harm. Eventually, on September 27, 2005, Michael was successfully extradited back to Singapore. The moment he arrived, he was charged with 2 counts of murder in the subordinate courts of Singapore. 9 months after he was extradited, on June 25, 2006, 48-year-old Michael McCrea was brought to trial in the High Court for the killing of Kunai Guan and Lan Ya Ming. According to the court records, Michael McCrea admitted to the killings of both Kunai Guan and Susie Lan. The prosecution's investigations unfolded the sequence of events as follows. Kunai Guan actually met his demise on the morning of January 2, 2002, during a heated altercation between him and Michael. According to Michael himself, he threw a New Year's Eve party on the 1st of January 2002 at his home in Balmoral Park. As the night wore on and the guests started to leave, Guan and Susie began tidying up the apartment while Michael and Audrey enjoyed a drink together. Guan later joined Michael but seemed to be in an unusual state of mind. When Michael asked about Guan's mood, he confessed to having consumed drugs. As they were about to retire for the night, Guan abruptly stood and directed a derogatory remark towards Audrey in Mandarin. Audrey promptly informed Michael, who was not present in the living room at the time, and Michael intervened by confronting Guan, pushing him against the wall, and demanding him to go to bed. However, Guan, in his intoxicated state, disregarded the advice and got violent. In a burst of rage, Guan threw a chair at Michael, instigating a physical confrontation. During this, Guan struck Michael with a vase and wielded the broken pieces as weapons. Despite Michael's pleas for Guan to drop the vase, Guan threatened him with death and made multiple attempts to stab him. Fearing for his safety, Michael instinctively defended himself, unleashing a barrage of punches to Guan's face and even resorting to strangulation. Following the altercation, Michael and Audrey found Guan barely breathing. Despite Michael's attempts to revive him, Guan could not be resuscitated. Michael and Audrey then swiftly intercepted Susie as she tried to exit the apartment. They guided her to Guan's bedroom, inquiring about any hidden drugs and where Guan had hid the money he received for his bonus. Michael insisted on her cooperation, even revealing Guan's body, which both Michael and Audrey had already placed in a wicker basket by then. For the next 2 days, Michael desperately attempted to conceal Guan's death by collecting his belongings for disposal. Additionally, he enlisted the help of 2 individuals, Gemma Ramsbottom, a former secretary of Michael, and a man named Augustine Chio. According to the records, Michael reached out to Gemma, while Audrey got in touch with Augustine. She informed Augustine that Michael had a fight with someone and requested his help to dissolve a dead rat. During this period, Susie Lan remained locked within Guan's bedroom and was provided with basic sustenance like water, chocolate, and cranberry juice. She was constantly pressured into revealing the whereabouts of Guan's hidden cash, particularly the $20,000 bonus given to him by Michael a month prior. With each passing day, Susie's condition deteriorated, and on the evening of January 3, 2002, Gemma entered Michael's flat in Balmoral Park. Shortly afterward, the group moved Susie to the living room, where Michael proceeded to wrap plastic bags around her neck, fully aware that this action could result in her death. That night, Michael, Audrey, Gemma, and Augustine were occupied with erasing traces of the crime in the apartment. They meticulously cleaned the flat, disposing all of Guan's belongings to erase any evidence of his presence. The wicker basket, which contained Guan's body, was then placed into the rear seat of the Daewoo Chairman motor car. Additional items, including clothing and dumbbells, were added to the basket to increase its weight, potentially for disposal at sea. Susie's body was later placed in the car's trunk, along with bags containing her personal items. Michael then sprayed air fresheners in the vehicle to mask the odor of decomposition. Subsequently, Michael drove the car around Singapore with Gemma in the front seat and Audrey in the rear. They scouted various locations before they decided to leave the car in the car park of the Orchard Towers complex. In his plea for leniency, Michael McCrea expressed deep remorse for his actions, attributing his psychological torment to his conscience. He emphasized the long-standing brotherly bond he shared with Guan since their meeting in 1998. Michael recounted his genuine concern for Guan's well-being, evident even on the night of the altercation when he urged Guan to go to bed due to his drug intake. His lawyer also emphasized the lack of intent to cause harm and highlighted Michael's efforts to revive Guan upon realizing that he was unconscious. In response, the prosecution emphasized the aggravating aspects of the case. They highlighted Michael's disproportionate response to Guan's provocation, resulting in a severe assault leading to injury and death. Additionally, they underscored Susie's unfortunate involvement, highlighting that she was merely at the wrong place at the wrong time. Just because she was a witness to Guan's death, Michael had no choice but to silence her. The prosecution contended that rather than admitting to his crimes and alerting the authorities, Michael prioritized concealing his actions and recovering the bonus he had given to Guan before his demise, ultimately fleeing the country to evade accountability. The court was now urged to impose a severe penalty for Michael McCrea. On June 29, 2006, the High Court Judge Chu Han-tek sentenced Michael McCrea to 24 years imprisonment, 10 years for each charge of culpable homicide, and 4 years for tampering with evidence. Should he demonstrate good conduct during his incarceration, he would become eligible for a 1/3 reduction in his 24-year sentence. This means that he could potentially be released on June 29, 2022, having served a minimum of 16 years in prison. Heinous, an Asian true crime podcast, is brought to you by OneUp Media. This episode was produced and written by Guangjin, edited by Alex, narrated by Jason, audio experience by Ethan Sam, additional engineering by Ashley from OneUp Media. Thank you for listening. We'll see you in the next one.